If you think history should be shared and not shied away from, and you want to help combat YouTube's shadow banning of history channels, then please like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget, click that notification bell when you do.
Gettysburg's first and premier podcast about living in and visiting Gettysburg has returned from that long commercial break. Thanks for sticking around. Here's Matt.
Did you say it's loud? How about that? Is that better? Okay, good. Well, you have good hearing. That's down really low. I wish mine's up really high because I'm deaf. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Back to the show, I should say. Like I told you, the Battle of Gettysburg in depth is October 20th, 2024 at the Garfield Farm Museum in Campton Hills, Illinois. It's an all-dayer. It's 8 to 6 p.m. So clear your schedule. Schedule is on the back of this, and let me just give you a couple things here. Like, for example, for July 1st, you got to talk about the battle beginning, obviously, right? But also, to the fishhook. How do they get into the fishhook? So that's what we'll do there. Lunch, there's going to be a band and reenactors. And then July 2nd, you get into the heaviest combat, part 1 and 2. Part 1 and part 2, okay? You're going to ask Garry questions, and then you're going to climax on July 3rd. So we're going to talk to our guests, introduce our guest right now. Sharon, welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here, Matt.
Good to have you. Just go right up to that. Pull that right up to you. Don't be shy. Give it a little kiss and move on your way and talk about everything you need to talk about there. Okay, so Sharon, tell us, first of all, where'd you get the idea to do this? Because Garry, you don't know Garry, right?
Well, only from YouTube.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's Garfield Farm Museum is a historic living 1840s museum. And it's actually the only surviving historically intact Teamsters inn and farm in Illinois, and the largest. Anyway, we have a wonderful facility there. It's a barn built in 1906, and actually it was moved. It's amazing. They've got this huge barn, and they moved it. But anyway, and it's used to be a dairy barn. It's a great facility for we have weddings there, hired out for weddings and that kind of stuff, all sorts of functions. But we have never done anything like this where we have, a big lecture series sort of thing in it. And I don't know if this will catch on, not necessarily an all-day thing like this is, but if this idea will catch on to have the public come and have guest speakers. But this is a great idea, and since we have a sponsor for this event, all of the proceeds go to benefit Garfield Farm Museum. Oh, good! So you which is a not-for-profit organization, So that's a great idea. So and it introduces people to the farm, and it, there's just a lot of Gettys nerds out there.
There are.
We're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're even in Illinois.
Yeah, of course. Well, Illinois, of course, everybody that knows about Gettysburg knows the first shot was fired by an Illinoisan.
Yes.
What are you called? Illinoisans?
Illinois, yeah.
Illinoisan, okay.
Yeah, Marcellus Jones is buried in Wheaton, Illinois. It's about 30 minutes drive from the farm. And actually, his monument here next to the Whistler's house, isn't it?
Yep.
Correct me if I get names wrong.
Sure.
Next to the Whistler's. It's the limestone for that actually is from Naperville, Illinois, that they built that with. And Naperville, Illinois was the home of Levi Schaefer.
Oh, the sergeant?
Levi Schaefer was the sergeant that he borrowed the carbine from to fire the first shot. So his monument here is,
I did not know that.
From Naperville, Illinois.
Did you know that, Mike?
It'll be on the guide test.
No, I did not, but good information.
So if you come to this, lecture, you're going to find out all sorts of things you didn't know.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So obviously we're going to have the 8th Illinois Cavalry reenactors there. We're going to reenact the first shot.
And that's fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, it's a short reenactment, but it'll be kind of fun. Everybody's outside.
Just one shot.
No, but I think there's more to it.
We're going to do that big.
Oh, okay. So you're going to have more than one guy there, is what you're saying.
Yeah, they'll ride up on their horse and jump off. And no, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's people doing stuff.
And so getting Garry, though, was that your initial like get that you wanted, or was it like, well, we got to do an event, what should we do? Did you have other ideas, or was it just like, let's go?
The first idea of this, now call me crazy, my idea,
don't tempt me.
Well, my idea was to have, because I've always thought that the first day has gotten short shrift.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
I think it's come more into vogue lately. Do you feel that? Or
I think people are starting to kind of appreciate it more. Yeah.
Ever since, I mean, I love the Ken Burns, Civil War documentary. Who didn't? But he spent like 5 minutes on it or something like that, and he called it a skirmish. Well, if that's a skirmish, I don't want to be anywhere near a skirmish.
I think, to be fair, though, I think he said compared to what was to follow, the first day was a skirmish. I think he was being dramatic, but yeah, it's still like, what is it, Mike? Like the 17th or 19th most
the number
casualties?
Of dead, yes.
Yeah, in the war.
Yeah. So anyway, my idea was to have a whole day.
Go ahead.
A whole day seminar just on the first day.
Right.
And, I think you could do that.
Oh, 100 people do it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do.
A whole day, nothing but the first day.
Yeah.
Well, I got talked out of it, and probably glad I did.
By who? Who didn't want to do that?
Well, I actually talked to Tim Smith about it because he's a first day guy, and also my other interest was having people know about the experiences of the people who lived in Gettysburg at the time. And he's very
local crap,
yes,
as they call it.
Yes. and he's very knowledgeable about that, and speaks eloquently and knows everything there is to know about the the experiences of the local people. So that was my original idea.
Okay.
Well, he couldn't do it with his schedule. So, but he actually said, what about doing all 3 days? And I think I passed the idea on to you. Ran it by you, and you agreed. At any rate, when I talked to you about it, so the whole thing changed. Okay, so it's not the townspeople, it's not just the first day, and okay, so what do we do? So that's when you and I met, and at the Adams County Historical Society. A wonderful organization that everybody should support, by the way. And
interesting.
Yeah, and you came up with the idea of Garry Adelman.
I did.
And you actually put me in touch with him.
I did that too.
So of course I knew him. Well, I knew him from American Battle from YouTube.
Sure.
But I didn't know him personally, and he didn't know me from Adam. So,
right.
But he was really great about it, and I cannot believe we actually found a date. I think it's October 20th is the only date he had.
Yeah, I was going to say he's very busy. Yes, like you got to get him months in advance.
It was October 20th or nothing.
He's a celebrity.
So you contacted him that was last year.
Yeah, and he said
it's almost a year out.
No, I think it was around Christmas was when.
Yeah,
that was when.
Right.
Yeah, we.
But
met,
I mean, it's almost a year from when you initially initiated contact about this whole thing that it's booked. So in other words, that's how busy he is what I'm saying.
Yes. So we were incredibly lucky, and really one of the reasons, if not the reason he's doing, is because he's from Illinois.
Yes.
So another native son.
You didn't know Garry is from Illinois?
I just assumed he was, from this region.
Yeah. So he can, visit his family. He can,
It's an excuse to go home.
Does he really want to do that?
Why not? So it's really great, and I think the whole idea sort of gelled, and then then the idea of the 8th Illinois Cavalry. We have a band that's going to play Civil War era music. There's lots of other stuff going on. Too much stuff going on that I mentioned. But I wanted to mention that the schedule that you referred to was Garry's idea, and that's sort of the schedule of the battle. As you see, it's sort of chronologically what happens in the battle. But that's not the only thing that's going to be discussed. Now, of course, it says Battle of Gettysburg in depth.
Right.
So, of course, he's going to go in depth on battle formations, troop movements, all of that. But he's also going to do, for instance, myths. Gettysburg myths.
Okay.
So, Matt, what's your favorite Gettysburg myth?
Well, my favorite one
Or should I say least favorite?
Right. Which one annoys me the most? That would be that it started over shoes.
Yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's going to cover that one and many others. So he's going to do that. And then, there's just, even with a whole day, there's just not enough time to cover everything, so I got interested in, and I think my story is typical of some people, maybe a lot of people, got interested in, I was always interested in history, but specifically the Civil War by actually the biographies. So I read Grant, of course I read his autobiography, then biographies of Grant, biographies of Lincoln, biographies of Lee, just the people. The people sort of drew me in. Not the battle itself, but the people.
Sure.
And that sort of drew me in. And I was also, and still am, very interested in the political machinations. Sure, yeah. From 1820 to 1861. All of that stuff. Yeah. The compromises that fell apart, and then another compromise, and then the actors in the. I mean, it's just fascinating to me. Yeah. I was also fascinated in the post-Civil War era Reconstruction, and still am. So actually, the Civil War itself and the Battle of Gettysburg, as far as the military, I'm just now reading Coddington. I'm so far behind on the actual military.
You're not behind. You're doing it at your pace.
Yeah. So, but all of these other things are very interesting. So, for instance, I mean, just a couple of things. I think the participants will be, if we can't discuss them in depth, they should be made aware of them. For instance, Garry Adelman knows a lot.
Right.
It's unfortunate, yes.
He just knows. He just knows a lot. There's a lot stuffed in that brain. I mean, and he can access it at will,
very quickly.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's very intimidating too.
Yeah,
I have gone to different things with him, and I mean, he wouldn't know me from Adam, honestly. But and you try to say something, try to look impressive, and then it lasts 2 seconds.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Then he goes like 30 levels below what you just said, and you're like, oh.
It's like, never mind.
Forget it.
Oh, but he's not like that when he lectures. I mean, like his YouTube, stuff that he puts out, he's so engaging.
Yeah, he's not doing it to be malicious.
No.
Just like,
he's just a font of information, and he's so engaging. We were talking before that he can talk to, professional historians, people who know, troop movements down to the nth degree, and he can also talk to people total amateur enthusiasts who there was a Battle of Gettysburg and I heard the Union won.
Yeah,
tell me more.
Right. So, where were the Germans?
Yeah, right.
But my interest is, I like to bring up to the participants, he knows a lot. How does he know it? How does he know it?
He was born with that knowledge. I always understood it.
Yeah.
How does he know it?
But that's a question. That's an interesting question.
Yes.
We don't have time now to explore it, and we won't even have time in the seminar. But it should be brought to people's attention. So quickly, my own experience. Okay, so he's obviously read a lot of books. I mean, I assume he's read a huge number of books. Okay, so you read a book. I've read books.
Yeah.
On by noted historians who know what they're writing about. Okay, so you read it, but how do they know? How do they know? So some of the books, if you're lucky enough, they come with footnotes.
Yeah.
And I love footnotes. I mean, Coddington's footnotes are just great.
Oh, yeah. It's most of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes me like 3 hours to read one page because I'm going back to the footnotes, which are more interesting than
which is right. Yeah. Exactly.
So if you're lucky, you get a book with footnotes. So you go back to the footnotes, and the footnotes sometimes refer to another book.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you're lucky, they refer to an original source.
Right.
Okay. All right. So you get back to the OR, you get back to letters, memoirs, newspaper clippings. So we're from the horse's mouth, aren't we? And we know that everything you read in a memoir or a letter or a newspaper or even an OR is the God's honest truth.
Gospel truth, yes.
And that's exactly what happened.
Right.
I bring up two quick examples that we won't go into, but I just throw that out.
Okay.
Chamberlain.
Yeah.
His original OR report from Little Brown Top was lost. 20 years later, he wrote another one.
Right.
And also,
if only we could all do that, right?
Well, the thing is, the other people that could have written were all dead. They all died on Little Round Top. So he wrote another one. And so sometimes you have self-aggrandizement. And I'll bring up another person, Longstreet.
Well, wait, but with Chamberlain, though, he was getting in a feud publicly with somebody who did survive.
Yeah.
And
what's his name?
Yep. Oh God, he's in. Mike, help me out. It just escaped me.
Ellis
Spears. Yeah. They got into it.
Yeah.
Publicly.
Well, and then of course Longstreet's a famous example with the the whole thing about and he's been attacked. It's years later. What did he actually say to Lee on the day about being on the defensive? And then he's being attacked. So of course he has to defend himself. And so we read his writings, but what are newspapers? They, of course, have no political ulterior motives for what they write.
No, they are the most honest purveyors of what is true.
Right, it's absolutely just like
arbiters
now.
of all we should. Exactly.
Just like now. And then letters. Okay, you have letters that people wrote. So that they wrote on the day that it happened, or sometimes it's later, but they have a memory.
Right.
So they wrote it.
Fresh in the memory.
Yeah, well, how about... Sally Longstreet. She wrote years later that in the 1900s, she wrote that Longstreet was the best man at Grant's wedding. And that's the source that we have. She's totally unreliable source. If you read everything that she's written, it's like half of it's just made up.
Right.
Just out of whole cloth.
Yeah.
And yet everybody says, oh, yes, Longstreet, because then we have the source.
It's in a book.
So I bring that up because it's fascinating to me, not because we can't, it sounds like we can't ever know anything. Because if you can't trust the people that were there and lived through it, who can you trust? But to me, it's just fascinating that history is messy.
Oh.
I think I told you once that somebody decades ago said to me, I don't know who it was right now, talking about the Battle of Gettysburg. And they said, oh, yes, the Battle of Gettysburg. The North won and the South lost due to superior numbers and interior lines. Period. That's the Battle of Gettysburg. We don't have to get into it anymore. We don't have to delve any deeper. Superior numbers, interior lines, period. Goodbye. Next subject.
Right.
Well, but
forget about management of those superior numbers.
History is so much messy,
Of course.
And that's what's so fascinating.
And didn't get there, wake up and stretch on 11 o'clock in the morning on July 2nd and go, you know what, guys? We've got superior numbers and interior lines. We're going to kick ass today. He had no idea.
Why does he sound like he's from a California Valley Girl?
Because everybody is nowadays.
God.
Guys, that's how our modern generals talk.
Ew, David.
Right.
So
they're all Alexis.
Yeah, they're all Alexis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and also, there's these important questions of history that you delve into. By the way, I was talking about this man who said to me about the Battle of Gettysburg. That's it. In one sentence. There's 60,000 books written and counting on the Civil War. Of those, 35,000 and counting are about the Battle of Gettysburg.
I'm telling you,
it's never going to
super popular.
Never going to be the end of it. And that's what's so fascinating is that you can keep going back and back and back. And of course, attitudes change over time. And this is another interesting subject: how attitudes, of course, specifically to Longstreet and Meade.
Meade's gotten a major overhaul,
and even Lee. Even, dare I say, Jackson, attitudes change over time. And the evolution of that is also very interesting. So
it is. And it's, the more I learn, the less I believe anything. Do you get that feeling when you realize, cause I'll give you an example.
I'll give you one.
We'll go back to the shoes.
Okay.
Battles fought over shoes. I remember coming here early on, and licensed guides saying that, right? On a bus tour or something. We used to do the double-decker bus tour, and they had an audio, it was an audio tour. And that alluded to it or something. I believe even the electric map, which was in the National Park Visitor Center, said something to that effect.
Well, they still have the controversy over the monuments, and with one hoof the horse is up.
Oh yeah,
that's another myth.
Right, that's another myth.
I'm sure Garry will address that myth.
But my point is that, like, for the longest time, how many generations, how many people died thinking that they knew the story of the Battle of Gettysburg, and now we're like, that's not true. Like this whole idea of these poor barefoot Confederates in ragged uniforms, barely with enough strength because they're starving so much, barely with enough strength to march and fight when they're up here and everything. Meanwhile, the opposite is true. They were living high on the hog for 2 weeks up here.
It was the Union Army.
It was the Union who was hungry and without shoes.
When Meade was told and ordered to take command, you know what his first written order was for?
Shoes.
51,000 pairs of shoes. Because then that's over half, slightly over half the Union Army. Didn't have shoes.
Right.
And
what did they do after the battle? Some of the men went to Frederick to get shoes. They didn't all go after Lee. I mean, when they were going but they had to stop in Frederick and get shoes. There was supply of shoes.
And then the very first day also that he assumed command, there was an enormous wagon train of supplies heading towards Frederick, and Stuart captured it, captured all of it, and that was what they needed, and it got captured.
Yeah, I think that was mostly like fodder for the horses, though. But you need that too because that's how you move around.
A horse needs 15 pounds of hay and oats every day, or else and it's not a matter of them just getting a little bit skinnier over time. No, they founder, and they just drop.
Right.
They can't function.
Yeah, they gotta eat.
They can't function. Speaking of horses, I'm sure again, we'll cover as much as we can on this day. And since the 8th Illinois Cavalry is there with their horses, maybe we'll talk a little bit about the horses and mules. But Garry has given me permission, depending on where he is in his lecture, and that's a big caveat, to not, interrupt if he's on a flow. But if he...
Oh, yeah, don't interrupt flows.
No.
Yeah.
If he's on a flow, no.
Right.
But if there's a convenient breath point and he has finished a thought before he goes on to the next thought, he's given me permission, depending on the situation, and he can always nix it, to raise a finger, and I'm going to have a whole pile of quotes from books that I've read that, for various reasons, just to interject something a little bit different, like one or two sentences, not like maybe 15, no more than 20 seconds, and then I'm out. So I'll just quickly read you one of them. We're talking about horses, and of course, this is what book this is from? Hardtack and Coffee.
Okay.
Yeah. The horse was good for any kind of service as a beast of burden up to the limits of his endurance. Not so his half-brother, the mule. The latter was more particular as to the kind of service he performed. Like a great many bipeds that entered the army, he preferred to do military duty in the safe rear. As a consequence, if he found himself under fire at the front, he was wont to make a stir in the neighborhood until he got out of such inhospitable surroundings.
Smart.
So I'll just, interject either to lighten the mood or to in the opposite. I asked you about that quote that I can't find. I hate it when I hear something, that I want to use and then I forget to write it down, and now I can't ever find it again.
Yeah,
all the time.
Because and I know Garry is not going to do this. He's going to concentrate on, and you have concentrated on the wounds, the battlefield wounds.
Yes.
So I know that's not going to be glossed over, but still, there's a temptation to, the glory of Pickett's charge and the banners and the very real bravery of fighting over a regimental flag. You got 9 guys who died, and they're down, and all of that glory. And I'm not diminishing that and the bravery and the courage. But we get caught up in that, those of us who have never fought in a war.
Yes.
We get caught up in that, and we think, "Oh, this is great," and you see the paintings of the battlefield flag, all of that.
Yeah, it stirs the emotions.
But there was this one quote, and I hope I can find it, about it's a person who was on the battlefield walking, and he wrote down in his diary that evening what he witnessed, and he was walking by a guy who had his jaw shot off.
Oh, yeah. I think that was E. Porter Alexander. Does that sound right, Mike?
It was a specific description that when I heard it, I think it was on YouTube, and I forgot to write it down. And the guy is holding his jaw down in his hands. His jaw is down and he's holding it down in his hands like this. His whole jaw is, and he's holding it. And this guy is describing because he's horrified by it. You know? There's nothing he can do for him, but and I don't know if I don't know much about anatomy, but evidently I have it on good authority that our tongues are incredibly long.
Yes.
And if they're loosened from their moorings, they actually hang down halfway down our chest. So his tongue was hanging halfway down. He's holding onto his jaw. I mean, this is horrible stuff. And he tries to say something, and this guttural, horrible, gurgling. I mean, the description just had me riveted. I was like grabbing onto the table when I was listening to this.
I don't think that's Alexander's description, is it, Mike?
I thought it was Antietam. Possibly.
That's something else. Yeah, that's not from here.
No.
Does that ring a bell with anybody?
Well, I'm not a big Antietam. I mean, I like Antietam.
I don't know that it was Antietam, but I
it.
don't think it was Gettysburg.
So the one from Gettysburg is he's over in the peach orchard, if I recall, and he's setting up the guns, and he glances and he sees a guy leaning against the fence or a fence post, and assumes he's dead because his jaw's ripped away. But then he moves, and then he said that of all the sights that he saw throughout the war, this horrified or haunted him the most. But there's another story with a jaw missing and the person like trying to get the author of the account to kill him, put him out of his misery. Was that Alexander's account?
I don't know that for sure. I know that Tazewell Patton also had his jaw shot away or shot off. And they actually had to take a young lady and put her back to him so that he wouldn't choke on his tongue.
Yes.
And so, there are plenty of stories like that.
Horrible.
From Gettysburg.
It just brings us back from all the glory to the actual experience of what it was like. And sometimes we need to be jerked. We all need to be jerked back. From the
this super secret documentary that we keep referring to. We're focusing on the horror. We're not going to do the glory. We're doing the horror.
Not diminishing it.
No, because the story doesn't lend to the glory anyway. It's all horror, and so we're not going to shy away from it. Like it'll have to have a warning in the beginning.
Probably,
yeah.
But
not for people like me.
Yeah, there will be bones.
But there's lighter things too. I mean, for instance, we talked. I won't go all into it because we don't have time. But we talked before about. I mean, the Civil War is tailor made for people who have trouble with names. I mean, you got Law and McLaws. You got 3 Johnstons.
Right.
You know the 3.
Albert Sidney, Joe, and Captain.
The reconnaissance guy.
Yeah.
And so, so it's not enough to have 2 Johnsons. You could have 3 Johnstons. Any number of Smiths.
And then, of course, there's Johnsons all over the place, which is more common. But people confuse the Johnstons with Johnsons.
It's horrible. Gotta keep everybody straight.
It's like talking about my family.
So, okay. Can I give you a piece of advice as a person who presents? Has a thing. And then, if you're going to do the finger and injecting thing, I would say to him, Garry, because here's the thing. Now, Garry is the consummate professional. He's been doing this for 50 years. Okay. So maybe it's different for Garry, but I would if I were in Gary's shoes, I would appreciate if somebody wanted to do that. I would say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. When I am feeling like I forget where I'm going with this, or I need, something to just catch my breath or whatever.
Or he's going to change subject.
Or I'm about to change subjects, right, whatever. Where I think it's apropos for someone else to jump in, I'm going to say, Sharon, you have anything? So maybe let Garry do that.
Oh, I hope I have something.
Because you got a whole book. I thought you got a whole book of
But I want it to
quotes.
be apropos to what he just said.
Ah, okay.
But yeah,
okay.
you're right. I could certainly do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he did say, and I totally agree that if I, say, think it's a stopping point and I go like that and he says no, then fine.
Yeah.
And I won't interrupt. Obviously, I won't even go like this if he's on a roll. I'm not going to. But
I've never known him to not be on a roll. So.
Yeah, that's the problem. I was sitting here thinking, I don't know when
When
you're
are you
ever
gonna
going to
have
get
that
to
moment?
interject because he's just so constant.
Yeah.
And I find him, like certain podcasts, like, you can listen to history things and you can think to yourself, I'm going to do like the dishes while I do this. Or I'm going to listen to this while I'm doing something else. Or I'm going to listen to this and fall asleep. Like this is a nice thing to fall asleep to. You can't do that. Any of those things with Garry, because he is constantly giving you something and you have to pay attention.
Yeah. He knows where he's going when he talks. Like he's not like me. I kind of wing it and I don't have the energy he does. But he knows where he's going, and he goes boom, 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 boom. I mean, you really could squeeze a lot in one day with Garry.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else would be able to do the whole Battle of Gettysburg in one day, right? Like he's going to do.
Well, I'll probably get in trouble with Garry for saying this, but I went to a meeting I'm not a member, but I went to a meeting to advertise this of the Northern Illinois Civil War Roundtable. Mm-hmm. He gave the very first lecture when that organization. And they still remember him, of course, because he's memorable. And he was great. He was great, yeah. And they loved him. And they were all excited that he's coming back to Illinois.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So,
but anyway, I did get a few requests. Could you please ask him to talk slower? It's like,
so you have to get him drunk. That's what you're going to have to do. Drunk Garry. That's the only way he could talk slow, I think, is you get him drunk. And I don't think he drinks.
I don't even know. I think he would probably be talking faster and there might be giggling.
Oh, dear.
But there are opportunities like built into the schedule for questions.
He insisted on that.
Yeah.
Lots of question periods.
Yeah.
Lots of them.
So, this is going to be all right. So
it's really a collaborative kind of thing. And so I want to say before we leave,
if it works,
and
everybody really likes it, are you going to do it again next year? If you do it again next year,
we don't know. We'll see.
But if you do it again next year, are you going to do it as a multi-day event if you wanted to do Gettysburg?
Oh, well, if we did it, we wouldn't do Gettysburg. If we have another lecture, it wouldn't be Gettysburg. It would be something else.
Yeah.
Something to do with, it's an 1840s. I mean, the Garfields came out in, I think, 1837 or 1841, something like that. You get the dates confused. By the way, so did Stephen Douglas. Stephen Douglas came out to Illinois from Vermont also. The Garfields came from Vermont. He came out in 1833. They came out in 1837. So anyway, no, it would, and we haven't really discussed this, at the museum, but it's just an idea rattling around.
Yeah.
That
was this your idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But perhaps the barn could be used other than weddings and other kinds of ceremonies for this kind of, this kind of thing.
Does the barn have heat?
No.
Does it get cold there in October?
It could, and we have space heaters.
Oh, okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
So it's like a...
Bring a sweater.
Or two.
It could also be 75 degrees, and you never know in Illinois.
Yeah.
So, all right. So say what you were going to say to wrap up, because we do have to wrap it up.
Yes, to wrap it up. So Garfield Farm Museum, it's about 40 miles west of Chicago. It's in Campton Hills, Illinois. It's not a big town, so you have probably to look it up.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you before. When we had talked about this before, you had named all of the different states that are not like an hour drive or so from...
Oh, we have people from Milwaukee. We have people, Milwaukee is maybe, I don't know, an hour, something like that, maybe a little bit longer. Northern Indiana is close. And actually, that part of Michigan that borders Lake Michigan is not too far. Mm-hmm. We actually have possibly some people coming from St. Louis, which is 6 hours away.
Okay, all right.
And Springfield, which is, I think, about 3. But yeah, there's all sorts of states there. And of course, if you come like the day before, you'd have to come the day before because it starts at 8 a.m.
Right.
There's all the, look up look up. There's hotel chains, every hotel chain you can imagine.
So there's still tickets available for this.
You have to sign up online, and we have a special offer. If you have to register at garfieldfarm.org, and you go to the page, and there's more information, and then there's a way to register. You register, and then if you do that, and then you show up, you just give your name, because we have, your registration. If you say the words "addressing Gettysburg" when you check in between 8 and 8:30, that's when the breakfast. This includes breakfast, not lunch. Bring your own, but breakfast. If you say "addressing Gettysburg," your name will be put in a pile, and if it's a couple, then the two separate names will be put in.
Okay. Two chances to win.
And Garry, in the afternoon break session, after lunch, in the afternoon break session, Gary's going to draw one name from that box.
Nice.
And that person will get their ticket price back in cash that day.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing. That is one of the benefits of listening to Addressing Gettysburg there. Okay.
So, so anyway, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For allowing me to come on and, toot our horn, Garfield Farm Museum.
Sure, of course.
We like spreading the nerdiness.
Yeah.
And I want to say to your loyal listeners that I've been a patron now for a little while.
You have.
And I totally encourage everybody to become a patron. It's totally worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
Why is it worth it?
Well, I'll tell you why it's worth it. I started listening to you before I was a patron.
Right.
I listened for free.
Right. Most people did.
For a while.
Yeah.
And I heard, I heard your podcast here. Yeah. And then you started doing these morning drives. So I'd be walking the dogs. I have 2 German Shepherds. I walk the dogs, and I have my phone in my pocket, and I listen to your, ramblings on your morning drive. But occasionally you would. The thing is, at that point, I had never actually been to Gettysburg. Never been to the battlefield.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I read about it. I'd seen pictures of it in books.
Yeah.
I'm a history buff.
Yeah.
But I had not visited the site. And so it was kind of nice that you drive and you say, "Oh, we're going by such and such," and I whip out the phone and look, oh, that's what it looks like. And of course it's, much better in person, but it was next best thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was it. And there were several things that drew me in. First of all, you have interesting topics on your show, and you cover them in an interesting way. And you have interesting guests.
Yeah.
And that was all meaningful to me. Mm-hmm. Okay. The other thing was you personally.
Aww.
And that is, but specifically you personally, what it was that drew it for me. On these morning drives, you would hint. Sometimes you'd come out and say. Other times it was more or less a secret thing, and you'd hint at some sort of, "Oh, well, there's something coming up. I can't tell you about it now, but I'm having a meeting." You remember, "I'm having a meeting at the Park Service at the Visitor Center this afternoon, and if it comes through, I'll tell you guys." Mm-hmm. And then you'd say, "Well, maybe we should do this," and then you'd have like 3 more ideas, and this is before you had breakfast, and then so you'd have like 15 good, interesting ideas before breakfast. Now, there's nothing particularly extraordinary about that. There's a lot of people who have good ideas, 15 good ideas.
Yeah.
The difference is that you would act on like at least 50% of them.
Mm-hmm.
They would
try at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, you'd hear later that they actually came to fruition.
Yeah.
And we all know people who are smart and with it and interesting people, and they have interesting ideas. I think, I'll do this. And you go, yeah. And nothing ever happens. Mm-hmm. With this guy, he has 15 ideas before breakfast, and half of them happen.
That is a very true statement.
So I think that's, that...
He doesn't like hearing about himself.
Well, look, for you loyal listeners...
I need to now, though. This is
the kind of person that's worth supporting. This is the kind of person that's worth supporting.
Oh, thank you.
And by the way, I also want to tout out, obviously, Garfield Farm Museum is worth supporting. And my other favorites are, of course, the American Battlefield Trust, which Garry Adelman is the chief historian.
Sure.
Their podcast, they are wonderful. They're worth supporting. and our favorite Adams County Historical Society.
Right.
They are another museum that's worth supporting. So I sound like, I don't know, an advertisement for all these places. But what brought it home to me, did anybody hear last week, Martin Sheen was at the White House. Did you hear him at the White House?
Yes.
It was a reunion of the West Wing cast and also the producer.
Right.
Okay, I don't know if you caught that.
Yep.
And he got up, and when it was his turn to speak, he's so great. He just said so wonderful. And he told a joke, and he started out with a joke, and he said, and I don't know if it was an Irish guy, it doesn't really matter. He said, this guy dies, and he goes to heaven, or he goes up to the gates of heaven. And, he says, well, God's there and everything. And he says, well, can I come in? Am I allowed to come in? And God says, well, where are your scars? And he looks, well, I don't have any scars. And God says, why not? Was there nothing worth fighting for?
Oh.
And to your listeners, I'm going to say that sometimes scars are financial.
Yes. They are.
And there's things worth supporting and worth fighting for. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate
that. Was
that.
Very sweet.
That's via Martin Sheen.
Yes.
You thank Martin Sheen for that.
Well, good old Martin.
Yeah.
Right.
We're on a first name basis.
Trust him.
There is no time.
There's no time.
There is no time. I have told you there is no time for that. There is no time.
No, but thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say.
October 20th.
October 20th. Not recommended for children. It's an intense day.
No, this is for anybody, whether you're an amateur enthusiast or you're a professional historian. You're going to get a lot out of this.
Yeah, and
it's just going to be great. Lots of things, discussed. Gone over.
A long day.
And you're not going to just sit in your chair all day. Garry is adamant. He already told
jumping
me,
jacks. You'll be doing calisthenics.
He's going to get you up and out and like,
formation.
Form you in an echelon attack formation.
Yeah,
and okay,
good.
go at it, guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you get to fight each other.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's beautiful. I love it.
And it's garfieldfarm.org. Yeah.
Like the cat.
And also, what's the phone number is 630-584-8485 if you want to call and get your tickets.
And that's Jerry Johnson, our executive director. He will personally answer the phone and take your order. He's taken many orders over the phone if you don't want to do it online.
Well, listen, Sharon, I hope you get a lot of people that come out to this. Are you close to selling out, or where are you now as far as
the
that
tickets
goes?
are actually they're going. They started out slow because people didn't know about it. Yeah, people didn't know about it. But now I have to say they're heating up, and I would get your ticket order in.
Good. And I've been reading ads for it for the last few weeks, so I'm hoping that some of those people are responding from the ads.
And I know
a
lot of your listeners are in the Gettysburg, Pennsylvania area, but they know people in Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois, maybe even Western.
That's the thing, is you're close to all those other states, so you don't have to be in Illinois to go to this. You can be anywhere. And
of course, Gary's going to talk extensively about the Illinois, connection with the 8th Illinois Cavalry and the 82nd Illinois Infantry. 82nd.
Okay.
And why? Last thing, people say, well, why aren't there more Illinois, units, regiments at Gettysburg? Illinois was 4th in the number, 150 regiments, volunteer. 4th in the number of regiments per state, and it's nowhere near the 4th largest state. Then.
No,
nowhere near. But 4th.
They just like a good fight.
And 99% of them, except for the 8th Illinois and the 82nd, went to the Western Theater. So, for instance, in Vicksburg, the same week as Gettysburg, 25% of Grant's army outside Vicksburg were from Illinois.
Oh, okay.
So that's where they all were.
That's where they all were.
They were all out there.
But a few of them were here. Firing the first shot at Gettysburg.
Yeah, and they served honorably out here, of course.
But thank you so much, and
thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank
And
you for coming out.
I appreciate your continued and awesome support.
And become a Patreon, guys.
Thank you. That's www.patreon.com/addressinggettysburg.
There you go.
What? We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Craving a Hot Pocket or a bag of popcorn? Now's the time to go and get it. We'll be right back.
Catch full episodes of AG Today live every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern to keep up with everything that's going on in Gettysburg and with the Addressing Gettysburg community.